tree. "No," said the sister of the invisible being. "No." Oh, she saw at once how they had lied. "Tell me," she continued, "if you think you've seen my brother, the invisible being, then what's the runner of his sled made of?" "Oh, we know," cried those two sisters, but whispering feverishly to each other once again, they wondered. "What shall we say? What shall we say? Let's say it's the great willow branch." "No," said the sister when she heard. "No, you have not seen my brother. Now go home." "Just test us fairly," they exclaimed. "We've seen him. Just don't ask us all these silly questions."
"All right," said the sister of the invisible being. "Come with me." And she took them back to the great wigwam and sat them in the seats furthest from the entrance, the guest seats. Soon they heard footsteps coming along the path. Then something stepped inside. Though they heard breathing, the two sisters still couldn't see a thing. Suddenly, a great bow and a beaded quiver of arrows appeared in the air and were set down. But though those two girls sat there, their eyes wide, all through the night, they never saw a thing more. And in the morning, they had to go home, ashamed.
The next day, the rough-faced girl went to her father and said, "Father, may I please have some beads? May I please have a new buckskin dress and some pretty moccasins? I am going to marry the invisible being, for wherever I look, I see his face." But her father sighed. "Daughter, I'm sorry. I have no beads left for you, only some little broken shells. I have no buckskin dress, and as for moccasins, all I have left are my old, worn, cracked, and stretched out pair from last year, and they're much too big." But she said, "Whatever you can spare, I can use." So he gave her those things.
Then she found dried reeds, and taking the little broken shell, she strung a necklace. She stripped the birch bark from the dead trees and made a cap, a dress, and leggings. Then, with a sharp piece of bone, she carved in the bark pictures of the sun, moon, stars, plants, trees, and animals. She went down to the lake shore and soaked the moccasins in water until they grew soft. Then she molded them to her feet. But they were still too big, and they flapped like duck's feet as she walked. Then all the people came out of their wigwam. They pointed and stared. "Look at that ugly girl," they laughed. "Look at her strange clothes. Hey, go home, you ugly girl. You'll never marry the invisible being." But the rough-faced girl had faith in herself, and she had courage. She didn't turn back. She just kept walking through the village. And as she walked on, she saw the great beauty of the earth and the sky spreading before her.
And truly she was alone, of all in that village, saw in these things the sweet yet awesome face of the invisible being. At last she came to the lake shore just as the sun was sinking behind the hills, and many stars came glittering out like a fiery veil in the darkening sky overhead. And there, standing by the water's edge, was the sister of the invisible being, waiting. Now the sister of the invisible being was a wise woman. When she looked at you, she didn't just see your face, or your hair, or your clothes. No. When she looked at you, you're fine. Make room. When she looked at you, she would look you right in the eyes, and she could see all the way down into your heart. And she could tell if you had a good, kind heart or a cold, hard, and cruel one. And when she looked at the rough-faced girl, she saw at once that, though her skin was scarred, her hair was burnt, her clothes strange, she had a beautiful, kind heart. And so she welcomed her dearly, saying, "Ah, my sister, why have you come?" And the rough-faced girl replied, "I have come to marry the invisible being.
Ah, said the sister very gently now. If you want to marry him, you have to have seen him. Tell me, have you seen my brother, the invisible being? And the rough-faced girl said, yes. All right then, said the sister. If you have seen him, tell me what his bow is made of. And the rough-faced girl said, his bow? Why, it is the great curve of the rainbow.
Ah! Exclaimed the sister in excitement. Tell me, she asked, if you have seen my brother, the invisible being, what's the runner of his sled made of? And the rough-faced girl, looking up into the night sky, said, the runner of his sled? Why, it is the spirit road, the Milky Way of stars that spreads across the sky.
Ah, cried the sister, in wonder and delight. You have seen him. Come with me. And taking the rough-faced girl by hand, she led her back to the great wigwam and sat her in the seat next to the entrance, the white seat. Then they heard footsteps coming along the path, closer and closer. The entrance flap of the wigwam lifted up, and in stepped the invisible being. And when he saw her sitting there, he said, at last, we have been found out. Then, smiling kindly, he added, and oh, my sister, she is beautiful. And his sister said, yes.
The sister of the invisible being then gave the rough-faced girl the finest of buckskin robes and a necklace of perfect shells. Now bathe in the lake, she said, and dress in these. So the rough-faced girl bathed in the waters of the lake. Suddenly, all the scars vanished from her body. Her skin grew smooth again, and her beautiful black hair grew long and glossy as a raven's wing. Now anyone could see that she was indeed beautiful. But the invisible being and his sister had seen that from the start. Then at last the rough-faced girl and the invisible being were married. They lived together in great gladness and were never parted.
Now what I want you to do, you're going to take 1 minute. If you want to go through and add any notes, finish anything up, go ahead and do that. Then we're going to dismiss you back to your seats to discuss some things. Let's take 1 minute here on the carpet. When Miss Wagner or myself touches you on your shoulder, walk back to your seat, put your pencil in the groove, and sit in learning position. Go ahead and take 1 minute. This is a person tap you on the shoulder.
So you should be looking at your chart, making sure that you have at least one annotation for all of the symbols on our anchor chart. You should have at least one annotation for every option on our anchor chart. So remember, genre means what kind of story we were reading, and this genre is a folk tale. Passed down
And if I tap you,
generation to generation.
bring your group's clipboard and put it in the clipboard bin. Keep the paper on it. I'll get them off later.
I like how the people that Mr. Dorsey is tapping has followed all the directions and are quietly leaving the carpet. I'm wondering if that's a good idea or if that's a bad idea. Thank you.
She didn't tell you to.
I love that I see a lot of people reading with their pencil, making annotations, writing some notes. Elijah, why don't you go back to your seat because you're not doing anything.
going back to our seat.
Derek, you did a great job going back to your seat quietly and following all directions. Your pencils in the green. Keep going. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I do. Down there. Oh, no, that was not. Hang on, hold on. I should go back here. You did a good job. Thank you for staying focused for the entire lesson. Always stable for you, okay? When we go. The rest of you are good. Kevin, as you're coming back to your seats, can you pick up the extra pencil?
And any extra packets that are in that pile there. And any extra clipboard pile you come back to.
Thank you.
Let's see who's ready to move on. We have Mandel who's ready. Oh, I'm going to first say shout out. Shout out. Give a class shout out. For that class, we've been probably on the carpet for almost an hour. Just will be an hour and just a couple minutes. And for that entire hour, you all kept it together. Now, what we want to do, you can put a face in the case.
I'm just going to put it right here.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually go through that process of recounting the story. Ms. Ray, if you want to get that story, I'll go ahead and grab the anchor chart.
Okay, so remember, when we recount a story, we're thinking about the genre. We're thinking about the people, and the scholarly word for people in the story is? The scholarly word for people in a story, what's that word, Michaela? Characters, good. I'm thinking about the plot. And plot is a scholarly word for the what in a story? For the events in the story. I'm thinking about the beginning. I'm thinking about the middle. I'm thinking about the end. And then I'm thinking about the problem, what was wrong in the story, and the solution, what happens to fix the problem. And then I'm thinking about the message. Why did the author write this story? What did he want me to learn? What happened to the characters? Can I apply what I read to my own life? That's what we're thinking about. And our anchor chart moves right up here so you can continue using your classroom. So your job right now is we're going to read another folk tale. I'm looking for all eyes.
Well, before that, we got to let's actually try to recount the story.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So let's try to recount the story together. So we're going to start with the genre of the story. Who can tell us, real quick, every class tell me, what's the genre of this story? Folktale. What's the genre, class?
Folktale.
Good. And then raise your hand. Actually, raise your hand. Not raise your hand. Turn and talk to your elbow partner about the characters, the setting first. Go ahead and talk about who are the characters and what is the setting. And you'll talk about that for 30 seconds. Go. Who are the characters? And what's the setting?
The two sisters, the roughhead girl, and the father, and the vegetable bean, and the sister, and the sister.
Who would you say was the most important of those characters?
The roughhead girl.
Was there anyone else who was really important?
The father.
The father? Why would you go ahead?
The father gave the two girls everything that was not broken.
Okay. Now, is the father in the beginning, middle, and end?
No.
Who are the characters that come up in the beginning, middle, and end? Because those are going to be our main characters. The Invisible Man.
The two sisters.
Are the two sisters in the end? Where are they at in the end of the story? Oh, I love how Derek's going through his text to see if they're actually in the end of the story. I love that. Think about what happens at the end.
The invisible man.
Are the two sisters there too? No. Okay. So we have him and the two sisters. Now what's the setting? Real quick.
There's in a village that destroys a place.
Ontario. Excellent.
Caleb's table is ready. Hands for the setting. Hands for the setting. Amara, what did your group say?
Not group say in the forest.
In the forest? Anybody remember specifically which forest? There.
And was it a forest?
No. It was a village in the lake.
You're
A
right.
village near the lake. Yep.
Maybe I could have gone back into my text. So now we have the setting. Very good, because good readers always go back in the text.
And what about our characters? We're going to think about our main characters. As a reminder, our main characters are those characters that show up in the beginning, they show up in the middle, and they show up in the end. So if you're going to tell me about a main character, make sure they show up in all those places. The invisible being is one main character. Is there another main character Kevin Billy tracking? The daughter.
Be more specific.
Which one?
I like that Kevin is thinking. What sister? Okay, the rough-faced girl. Jared.
The invisible man.
The invisible. So we have the invisible man. We have the rough-faced girl. Who else do we have, Montre? Montre. Okay, so we have the rough-faced girl. We have the invisible being, and then we have.
He said it. He said it.
Okay, with
Yes.
the sister of the invisible being. Yes, you got it. The sister of the invisible being. Good. 3 main characters.
Yep. All right. Now, so if I was to retell that story, I would say so far, the genre of the story is a folktale. It's a folktale about an invisible being and his sister and a rough-faced girl who wants to marry him. Then I'm going to, and they are in a village near Lake Ontario. That's me recounting the story so far. So far, I would have about 4 sentences already. Now let's go to the plot. What are the 3 events that happen in the beginning, middle, and end? Miss Wagner and I are going to walk around and we're going to listen. We're not going to share this out. We're going to listen to what your group decides happened in the beginning, middle, and end. You'll have 2 total minutes to talk to your group about the beginning, middle, and end main event. Go.
What happened in the beginning was the 2 sisters made in the beginning they made her sister do all the work. Stores like Ontario, and then
So what happened first?
they were in the beginning. In the beginning, they were in the stores and the 2 sisters made the sister do all the work for them.
Well, what's the main event that happened in the beginning? What happened first?
The girl gets scars on her body.
Well, that's happening her entire life. What are the 2 sisters doing in the very beginning?
Trying to marry the invisible man.
Okay, so they're trying to marry the invisible man. Then they travel, and they're traveling, and they go somewhere. What happens when they, now what happened in the middle of the story? What happened? The sisters travel somewhere. Where do they travel? They travel to him? Help them.
They travel so they can marry the invisible being. And then the invisible being sister asked them what is his boat made out of, and they said
So were they correct?
no.
So what's the event? So they go to their sister and they find out that they what? What did the sisters find out? Once they got, their goal was to go to marry the invisible being. Once they got to the sister, what did they find out?
The sister asked was going to ask
And did they know the answer to those questions? No.
But they first got married.
Oh, so at the end, what happens at the end there? Because that's what happens at the end. What happens at the end?
The rough-ass girl got her right, and they got married. Let them get in a position. Don't worry about that. Let's see if the people are asking everything. It's like a camera. Look, see me. It's my elbow. Stop crying. I'm watching tomorrow. No, don't wait. Don't be late. I'm watching tomorrow.
Three, two, one. And we kind of talked a bit about the problem and solution as we were going through. At least the group I talked to did. Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes the problem and solution come out as you're doing your beginning, middle, and end, and that's fine as long as you're recounting all those parts. When you do your exit ticket, you'll have to write those things separately. But the last thing we want to do, and this is how, when we read stories, how we connect, how authors try to connect to people's lives. What we're trying to see now, we're trying to see, stand up, we're trying to see, how does this relate to our life? What's the message here?
What is the author trying to teach us by telling this story? So what's the big takeaway? Is there something that happens in the story that I can learn about life, about interacting with other people? How can I use what the author wanted to tell me? So I want you to think about it for a minute.
I like how people are just taking time to think. In about 10 seconds, I'm going to be asking people to share out what they think the message is. They don't have to prove it by talking about something that's related to the text. In 5 more seconds.
What was the author trying to teach me?
2, 1. Track tomorrow.
The author is trying to teach us always have a kind heart.
I like that. And I also like how you restated the question in your answer. So the author wanted us to have a kind heart. What do you think, Derek?
The author telling us
Loud and proud, I can't hear you.
The author telling us never lie.
The author's telling us to never lie. Maybe the sister that didn't get the husband because they weren't completely honest.
That's a good answer. Go ahead, Andre. Okay, wait. Say that last part again, because that's the important part. Cheyenne, did you hear that? This answer is so good. Can we say it very loud?
Vontae, talk to Trayvon, please. Talk up.
The ugly girl.
What's her name? What? The what? Yeah.
This is
what you look like, what's important is your heart. Angel, did you want to add on to that?
Last one.
It don't matter the way you look. It don't matter the way you look.
It doesn't matter the way you look. What matters is your kind heart and how you are on the inside.
A smart man once said, it's not about the color of my skin, it's about the content and within my character, who I am as a person. So it's not about the color of my skin, but it's about the content of my character. How is my character made up? What kind of person am I? So for your exit ticket, and Ms. Wagner's going to pass that out now. What you're going to